This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
A warm welcome to all the kids that have just tuned in. I'm Nikki here at andBeyond in Ngala, and behind me with the camera is Marcel. And today's temperature, it's 28 degrees Celsius or 82 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a pretty warm day. So we weren't initially looking out for the lions. We were actually going to see if we can find some elephants at the waterhole. But then as we were starting to drive off to head towards the waterhole, we found all these young lions here. So it looks to me that the mothers have left them, and they've probably gone out to see if they can hunt anything. Now, just having a look around, there's quite a few. You can see the two white ones laying together there, but all of these are the youngsters, and I haven't even seen a male or anything with them, so it's definitely all the youngsters that have been left as the mothers are probably heading across somewhere to go look for hunting opportunity. And it'd be so interesting if we can spend some time with them and eventually see when the mums come back, how would they react. Like, it's an amazing thing to see whenever the mum comes back and they all get up and they start running towards and they start greeting each other, rubbing up, again, like brushing their cheeks against one another. So it'd be interesting to see if the mother gets back. Before, you were asking a really good question about the lions in terms of the age. Now, from my experience, is that the oldest lion that I've ever seen here, especially on andBeyond in Ngala, was probably around 16, 17 years old. And that's normally quite old for a lioness. Normally they'll only get up to 14, maybe 13 years if they're that lucky. And then with the males, sometimes they won't grow older than 11, 12. It's just because there's so much competition. Often the males fight with each other, and they do get serious injuries from that. And then eventually also, because of those injuries, they can't hunt properly. So I would probably say, from those that I know, the oldest, especially here at Ngala, and that would probably have been around 17, 18 years. But normally they won't get older than 14, 15. I can hear some francolins calling in the distance. You'll see, just above this one here, I'm going to ask myself just to move the camera up. You'll see a few of them have actually lifted their heads. Even this one now lifting his head. Oh, he's just cleaning himself. But with the others lifting their head, they're probably waiting in anticipation for the mums to get back. So they're just scanning to see that they don't miss her. Now, when she gets closer, she might just give this very, like, short contact call, like a oop, oop, oop. And then immediately all of them would lift up their head and start going in that direction. So that's what we're hoping for. If the mothers were here, I would have said, let's maybe come back with them later, because normally lions, they are pretty lazy animals and they'll sleep for quite a bit of the day. However, you just don't know when the mom is going to return, and we want to be here when that happens. Barnaby, age 12 in... Age 10 in London. Sorry about that. You were asking a very good question. What do I do in order to stop poachers? Well, I mean, from my side, as a ranger, like, I don't do too much other than, of course, whenever I can educate people in terms of why poaching is bad and the effects that it has on the wildlife. But also the other thing I do is whenever I do any patrols or whenever I walk on foot or track animals and I do hear or see any tracks or signs of poachers, I would immediately report that to the anti-poaching team. So my role is basically just to be the eyes and the ears. And if there's any suspicion of a poacher around, then I will let people know. But from myself, I'm not personally involved in tracking down people and trying to catch poachers. See how this one is just cleaning. James, age 7 from the UK. I would like to show you which one of these are the youngest. So see the two white ones together. Now the smallest white one, so the one on that you will see on your left. So she with her sister, which is, so I'm going to ask if you can just go slightly up and right. Her and this little lioness that's picked up her head now, staring almost towards the southerly bank. Now those two are the youngest, and they are around about a year old now. Just over, I think a year and maybe 2 weeks as we speak. But they're the youngest in the pride. Now there's another lioness that we think might have cubs. Now if that is the case, then those cubs are not even 2 months old. So we're still waiting to see them being introduced to the rest of the pride. But have you noticed with this one standing up, like especially near the eyes, there's quite a lot of white, and especially under the chin. But for now, we're going to stick with them for a little while and see if the mothers come back. But while we're doing that, let's head across to James with some hippo.
And welcome to Djuma Private Game Reserve. Here we are sitting at Juma Dam in front of the main lodge, which is called WildEarth. My name is James Henry. I cleaned my teeth before drive today, and David is on camera.
Hello.
And we are looking at a hippopotamus that is doing a little bit of a display. He has been breaching like a whale. Let's just see if he does it again. And then we'll probably head off relatively quickly from here because there is the sound of elephants in the distance, and I'd like to see some elephants. I'm sure you'd all like to see some elephants. Please send through your questions, of course, to kidsquestions at wildearth.tv for the first 45 minutes. Or your comments, any queries you might have about conservation, Africa, animals, biology in general, we'll happily answer them for you. Some of you will be back at school now, some of you will be, and I mean that in a virtual sense, some of you still on holiday probably. Let's just see, there he is. Now he's not performing anymore. He was doing this wonderful performance for us where he kept leaping up, sticking his nose out the water, and then jumping. Let's just give him 2 minutes and see if he does it again, because it really is quite fun to watch. He's definitely come closer to us to have a look at who we are and what we want and why we're at his waterhole. Now, he can't hold his breath for very long. There we are. Come on, buddy. I wonder if he hasn't come too deep now for him to jump out of the water like he was doing earlier. Hello, Harriet. You're wondering why hippos are considered so dangerous. Harriet, they're considered dangerous because they're very easily threatened. So they have to be in water. If they can't be in water, they feel very vulnerable indeed. And that's what makes them threatened. And so if you get between a hippopotamus and the water, or it feels like its water body is being threatened by you, it will become immensely dangerous. And so that's what you have to watch out for with hippos. They are not dangerous by default. And this is important to understand of just about every single animal. Most animals, especially in Africa, are not dangerous by default. They are threatened by the presence of human beings, and that causes them to react often in an aggressive manner. And that's exactly what causes a hippo to react in an aggressive manner. If it feels threatened, like you are trying to chase it out of its water or are between it and its water, it will react in an aggressive manner. And that's really important for me. I know that I bang on about this a lot, but it's important that people don't think that the animals here are massively aggressive. Eli, you're in Cape Town and wondering how big a hippo is. Is that right? How much a hippo weighs? Well, the biggest hippos probably weigh in the region of 2,500 kilograms. Oh, how big is a large hippo's mouth? That big? Plus, minus? Maybe even bigger? Right, he's gone off to some slightly shallower water now, so let's just check. Alright, we're going to go across to Trish now, find out what's happening with her, and see where she's going.
Hello everyone, hello from myself and from this lovely yellow-billed hornbill. Look at it, it was actually quite nasty today because I was about to show you a magpie shrike and this hornbill came and chased the shrike off. Oh, it's still there. Hello everyone, it's me, Trishala, with Owen on camera this afternoon. It's quite a nice warm afternoon. It's 28 degrees Celsius, 82 degrees Fahrenheit. I think you might already know that. And that's why I want to go to the dam. In fact, the really big one, it's called Biffleswick Dam. And I'm now on the northern boundary. So that's going to take me straight down there. And I'm hoping to find those lovely big animals, you know them. And they are elephants. So welcome aboard everybody and welcome aboard to those lovely kitties. I am so excited to have you. I think our nice yellow-billed hornbill is also excited. Now can you see how big that beak is? Oh, Jenna, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Jenna. You've turned 10 years old. You're in the double digits. You're such a big girl now. I think even the hornbill wishes you a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Jenna. Quack, quack, quack. I think that's what it's saying. And off it goes. Now that bush, oh, you're still in there. That bush is called a guari bush, a magic guari, and it has little berries that grow on it. And the birds have been going crazy for those berries lately. They are outside my room as well, and they've been absolutely demolishing the tree by my room. And I think that's what this hornbill is looking for. But you'll find that trees that grow near the camp are often in much better condition because big animals can't come along, and they are a lot more fruiting. So they have a lot more nice fleshy fruit to give to the birds. And that's because there's a lot more water around where people live, isn't there? Right, still playing about at the top. There you go. Now you'll find when something is in abundance, animals that even ordinarily won't eat fruit still do. Like this hornbill, although they do sometimes eat fruit, they prefer to have some small insects and even small animals like lizards and things like that. Especially like worms. I saw one eating a huge praying mantis recently also. They often get left behind because we see so many of them. Hello, Elsie, aged 5 in the UK. You'd like to know why do the birds have curved beaks? That's because of what they eat. Now, birds with long curved beaks like this, you'd think that that's really good to pluck stuff up like a pair of tweezers almost. And to do that, well done. So this is a red-billed hornbill. And what they'll do is they'll put their heads to the ground and they'll shift the sand from side to side in order to catch little critters that are jumping about. And that beak is just perfect for that job. So you'll find that animals out here, animals everywhere, they have the perfect tools. Hello, what have you got there? They've got the perfect tools in order to survive. And over millions and millions of years, those tools get refined, or they get better at doing the jobs that they need them to do. I can hear some Impala fighting in the background. It can sound quite fierce. I don't think you would have heard it though. Hi Cara, you're 10 years old and you're from Cape Town. from our very own country. You'd like to know why are they called yellow-billed hornbills, or in this case, a red-billed hornbill? Well, the color can give it away, this one being red and the other one's bill being yellow. And the word hornbill actually comes from some members of this group having what's called a casque on the top bit of their beak that can sometimes make a horn-like sound. Although these guys don't have them, that's where the name for this group of birds comes from. I'm not sure if you know Toucan Sam. He used to be on the Fruity Loops box at one point. They're also in a similar group, and they can also have a bit of a horn or a casque on the top of their beaks. Looked like this one was actually chasing a butterfly. Well, I'm going to start to head off now in the direction of that dam. Hopefully find some elephants. But I'm going to send you back over to Nikki because he has got some lions, and that is just awesome.
So we try to see if the mothers have, if they're around in the area, but it doesn't seem like they're around. So I think after this, we'll probably give it another couple of minutes time or so with these lions. And then afterwards, we might just start heading in the direction of one of the warthogs. And maybe in an hour or so, we'll come back here and see if these youngsters are still here or if the mother's still around. But I just wanted to see if we can focus on this one lion that's just laying here in the back. That's pretty hard to see. But I don't know if everyone can notice, but it looks like she's feeding on something. She's actually eating a bit of grass. And I think the reason being is because she probably has an upset stomach. Now, I don't know, kids, if you've all seen, like sometimes if a dog or a cat isn't feeling too well, they'll go and they eat the grass. Now, the same with lions. Often if they have an upset stomach, they'll eat the grass. And that's what she's been doing now for maybe the last minute or so. I think she might have just an upset stomach. Sutton, age 13 from Australia, you asked a very good question. Do lions have like the same intelligence as a dolphin? And it would be really hard to say, like, thinking about the intelligence of a dolphin and how they can maneuver and how they communicate in that, I would say probably not as advanced as that of a dolphin, but lions are pretty smart animals. Like, it's amazing to see how often they would hunt. I mean, let's say if all of these had to get up and let's say they grew and they were 2.5, 3 years older than they are now, and they were a pride that could potentially hunt all these youngsters here, then whenever they move in the grass without necessarily having to make a lot of noises, they can communicate. And I think the way that they communicate, they're able to give so much information without even having to say anything verbally. So it's all through their body language. So I do think they're pretty smart, but I don't think at the same level, though, of intelligence as that of a dolphin. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know if anyone, maybe if any of the other kids would know a little bit more about it, or if you've done a project or read about it, I would love to hear that. But according to my knowledge, I'm just not too sure.
If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a ladder, it will go its entire life believing it's stupid.
That's some wise words from Marcel. But yeah, I would honestly think, I think lions are very smart animals. I think also, like, the way that they communicate, it's hard to actually go and compare the two, because I mean, with dolphins, their whole way of hunting, their whole way, like how they communicate with each other, how they need to hunt, is completely different to that of lions. And then, of course, if you would have put a lion in their situation, of course, it wouldn't have done well. But if you put a dolphin in the lion situation, also it wouldn't have done well, because they both need different ways in order to hunt something or in order to communicate. And I think there's so much that we don't, I think even for us, we think we know so much about nature. We study so much about nature, but I think for me personally, the more I learn about it, the more I actually realize, like, I don't know as much as I thought I did. Because every time we grasp into a concept, there's something that changes, and that's the beauty of nature. Solly, age 12 from Johannesburg, you had a very good question. Why are some of the lions white? Now, with the lions, so just to give you an idea, so if you look at some of the browner ones that's laying right next to that white lion, so with those two white lions, their siblings, so their brothers and sisters, are a different color, so they're a brown color. So how that happens is they have to have what is known as a recessive gene. So if I can use an example. So let's say mom and dad both have blue eyes. Then the chances of you having blue eyes are going to be better than you just having brown eyes. However, if there might be a chance that one of the carrying genes has a bit of green in it or maybe brown, then maybe 1 in every 4 children, let's say even if the parents had blue eyes, would have brown eyes. So the best to explain it is the mum and the dad has to carry a gene that has the white color. It's a recessive gene, so it's not a very dominant gene. And then only once the mom and the dad have it, 1 in every 4 of the lions born are likely to be white. But they're not albino. It's more like leucistic. So leucistic is a very light, pale form that you find within lions. So see how some of them are getting up. We'll stick with them for another little while. But while we do that and see when the mums are going to come back, let's head across to James with some elephants.
We've been very lucky. We've caught up with the elephants. It is a little windy, and normally when it's a bit windy like this, the elephants can be a little nervy, but there's quite an interesting little fight going on here in front of us. Now, there's a tuskless young bull and a tusked young bull, and the tuskless one is a little bit older than the tuskless one, and they're having a little bit of a boxing match. It's just a play wrestle. It's almost as if the little one is causing trouble for the sake of it. And the older one's getting a little irritated. Maybe not. Maybe it's the tuskless one that's giving the trouble. Maybe he's trying to compensate for his lack of tusks. So you can feel this wind has come up now, and that might make them a little skitty. Or frisky. There are 2 little ones now having a fight. You see those ones, David? Hello, Barnaby, all the way in London, wondering how long tusks can be. There's no real way to say. Some big elephants have got tusks that reach all the way down to the ground. And an elephant's tusks will keep growing throughout its life, so they can get longer and longer until the elephant dies. And then with horns, normally they reach, it depends whose horn we're talking about. If we're talking about an Impala or a kudu, they probably grow for their whole lives, but they grow very slowly towards the end of their lives. So, they get to about a maximum size. And then rhino horns are a bit like your nails. They grow all the time, and rhinos will actually sharpen their horns and wear them down slightly. So it's really difficult to say, how long horns and tusks get. I'm just trying to think of the best way to go from here. I think let's go a little bit forward, because there's a nice clearing. give us some view of them. It's not the best view, but that bush is very thick in there, and so I don't want to go crashing in after them. Suddenly a very unpleasant wind has popped up. If an elephant's tusk breaks, it will be very painful to start with. It's like if you lose a tooth. It's very painful, but it will heal. And often elephants lose tusks, and often it's really not a problem. Sometimes they break, sometimes they get an abscess, which is when the nerve dies inside, and then it's really painful, and then eventually the tusk drops out, and they live with one tusk. And they seem to get used to that, no problem. What is the most what part?
Sensitive.
Sensitive. Oh, Pranav in India. The most sensitive part of an elephant. Let me just think. I would think it's probably the end of the trunk, you know. Those trunk ends are able to pick up tiny little things. And the only way they could do that is if they could feel very sensitively. So I think it's probably the end of the trunk that's the most sensitive part of the elephant. That's an interesting question. You can just hear all of the leaves being pulled. Tyler, I think your question was, why do the elephants eat bark? Is that right? They eat bark because sometimes bark is the most nutritious thing on the plant. And it's the most nutritious because it carries all of the nutrition that the tree needs. There's something interesting going on here. There's a big cow there who's lifted her head up, and that means she's not very happy. Ah, that's why. There's a little bit of a conversation going on between her and another big cow. I don't know if it's an argument. It's also difficult to tell initially, is it just a heightened sense of awareness, or is it upset, or what is it? But you saw her head come up like that. Always looks a little bit like it's a sort of threat display. And then there's one the other side of us here. We'll just quickly go back. Is that all right, Dave? Shall I go back? That's fine. Here comes a nice young bull who's decided that he's going to spend a bit of time away from the herd because all of the kids playing and the mums disciplining the kids and the kids wanting to play with him have made him a bit tired, and so he's decided to spend a bit of time away from the herd in some peace and quiet. Just wait and see what he does from there. He might come a little closer and say hello. Sometimes it seems to me, and I don't know if this is true or not, it seems to me that the young bulls rather enjoy our human company. It seems that desire or that enjoyment wanes as they get older, but as they're little ones or younger ones, they quite enjoy hanging around us. So let's see if he does. And often you just need to sit very patiently for a while. Sometimes they just walk straight past, and then sometimes they come say hi. See, he's smelling us now. I also think they're very aware of which is the front and which is the back. And so by walking around to the back, it's a slightly less threatening thing for them than if they walked around the front. So he's had a smell. He's decided that we doesn't particularly think we're very interesting, so he's carrying on. Yes, Freddie, they certainly do. They definitely do eat fruit from the baobab tree. There he is. We can go. Should we go back a bit? I'm just going to go back a little. They also like to eat the bark of the baobab tree. Unfortunately, we don't have any baobab trees here. They only occur further north. And in fact, you'll find that the southernmost naturally occurring baobab trees occur quite near andBeyond Ngala, where Nikki is driving at the moment. Ngala does have a few baobabs, but we're pretty sure they were all planted by human beings, which is absolutely fine. Now we're going to go across to Trishala, who has made it all the way to the northeast corner of Juma, and she's got a goose. That antenna is just magic.
I do. I have a goose, as James would say. It is an Egyptian goose. It is trying to keep its position here at Warthog Dam, where you can see that the surface of the water has lots of bumps in it. And that's because it's quite windy. The wind has picked up very much. Unfortunately, our little goosey is by itself. The hippos that are usually around have taken cover somewhere. But we have something else interesting going on, and that is some Impala in the front of me. There we go. And I say this is interesting because they were very nervous and looking a little bit skittish. They were jumping and kicking their legs in the air. But I wonder if you can tell why. There's no predator. Even though at first they kind of behave like there's a predator, but they're not alarming. They're actually very upset or very nervous because there's that big male around. Can you see him? There with the horns? Ooh, can you hear the wind? Very, very windy. So this male is terrorizing a few of the young males in there. I don't know if you can see this. Some of them with little horns, like this guy. Hello, you. You're going to grow up soon. And the rest are females. I think there's another individual with some horns as well. And the rut is going to start soon. That is the time when impalas will start to mate so they can have babies by the end of the year. So this big male with the big large horns, you can see that he's mature. That means he's ready to make babies. And that's why he's trying to chase the other males out. Apart from that, he's also trying to mate with the females, and sometimes the females don't like it very much. So that's why they can be a little bit nervous. Hello, Sophie from the UK, and you're 9 years old. You'd like to know how big can a herd get? Do they have a leader? They don't have a leader, and herds can get massive. Sometimes you get one herd, and then the one herd can join with another herd, and you can get hundreds, especially out on quarantine. That's the clearings near camp. And you'll see hundreds of them all together. So they have a very, oh, there goes that male chasing again. They have very mixed herds. They're not territorial except for when the rut happens, and that happens in May-ish. So now this male here is starting to get a little territorial. That means he's going to defend a patch of land and try to get females to step into his territory. But when he's not territorial, every other time of the year, they all hang out together very happily, and there's not much fighting. Now he has a whole lot of chemicals and hormones in his body, that are starting to take over a little bit, and that's why he's going to start to behave a little differently. And the females are not very happy about it just yet. But they also know that they do want to have some babies, so they will still hang around, even if they act a bit skittish or a bit nervous. You can see now they've calmed down a little because they're starting to eat. Hello, Michelle. You're 11 years old and from India. You'd like to know if Egyptian geese are dangerous. I was trying to look for our dangerous animal, but our dangerous animal has moved off. Egyptian geese are not dangerous. They may occasionally... Oh, there it is. Right at the end. Sitting very proud. Let's show it to Michelle. Yep, on the edge in the shadow. There we go. So, Michelle, they're not very dangerous at all, but if you are a naughty child like I was, and you insist on feeding him in the park and wanting to touch them, they can give you a nip. They can give you a little, not really a bite because they don't have teeth, but they can close their beak onto you, or their bill onto you, and it can give you a bit of a shock. But it doesn't hurt, I promise. I've experienced it, and I can promise you also that they're not dangerous. You might want to just be wary if they're flying ahead of you, because your eardrums might burst from the noise that they make, because they shout quite a lot. Also, you don't want them to poo on your head, which they sometimes are good at also. But apart from those dangers, they are absolutely harmless. Very cool. Now, when nothing too eventful is happening at the dam, I was hoping to find those elephants walking around, or hopefully splashing about, but nothing is so far. So I'm going to send you back over to Nikki and his wonderful lions while I keep on going.
So how exciting is this? We were driving away from the lions, and we said, let's go past the tree. We saw a leopard yesterday and as we were driving past, I thought I saw something. I said to myself, let's go have a look. And just at the base of this tree, we found this young male leopard. Wow, just look at he's such a beautiful male. Just look at the colors of his eyes. Like, it looks like this tinge of yellow, and even his nose, like a little splash of pink. And under his chin, you can see he's panting quite a bit at the moment. It's probably because it's quite warm. But you'll notice that under his chin there looks like this black collar that runs underneath. As Marcel says, his little necklace. How amazing is that? Even look at the white tip at the end of his tail. So I think the flies are bothering quite a bit, but earlier on, I think he might have been up in the tree when we first spotted him, and then he came down and he lay down in the shade. Now, whenever leopards, so we're going to try and just show you the tree that he was in. So this is a big, what's called a Ngala tree. And when we move out, we'll show everyone more about it, but it's one of the biggest trees that you find in the area. And there's quite a few horizontal branches, so a very nice spot for a leopard just to go and lay down. And not too far from where he's laying down, we actually saw a herd of Impala. So I wonder, maybe later on as it starts cooling down, if he'll take any interest in that herd. But for now, he's very relaxed. And like, if you look at him, this is the one that they refer to as the Makoti male. Because when he was young, he used to hunt a lot of vultures. And that's where he got his name, Makoti, because Makoti means vulture in Shangaan. Benjamin, age 6 in Toronto, you were asking me a very good question. How do I know if a leopard is a male or maybe a female? Now, if they're young, it's really hard to tell the difference because the only way of actually seeing is to look between the legs. Whenever they pick up their tail, that's often how we can see that. However, what the other features that tells me that it's a male or not a female is so by looking at the facial features. So if you look around his nose, his head, and his chin, his cheeks, you'll notice it's quite stocky. Now the females, so have a look at that. It's a pretty stocky face. The females, on the other hand, have a smaller, more petite, more delicate face in comparison to his. Now, also saying this, like I sometimes would get a young male and young female confused, especially at the distance, but out of personal experience and also by the spot patterns, I know this young male. So I used to know his mother pretty well. And then soon after she passed away, of course, he had to like fend all the way for himself. And so he's the other young male that's in this area. But the bigger male, the more dominant male, he's a lot bigger than him. See how he's looking up into the tree? I wonder if he might not want to move up into the tree pretty soon. But I would definitely say some of the characteristics, just to get back to our discussion, is looking at the face, the jawbone, the size of the head, the size of the mouth, and that's a very good indication. Often if they're older, if they're not young, it's easier to tell the difference because a big male leopard could be a lot heavier than a female. So let's say some of the females that we find here, they might be up to 60 kilograms, but a big male could be close to 90 kilograms. So you can just, if you work that out, multiply in order to get it 2 pounds. I'm not too sure the conversion. I think it's 2.2 to get it 2 pounds. So let's say nearly 200 pounds for a big male. And the female would be 120, maybe 150. Yusuf, age 12, from South Africa, you were asking a very good question. I just quickly want to listen out. I'll get back to your question now in regards to why leopards live alone, but I can hear some kudu's alarm calling behind us, and I think that might be from those lions. Now, the lions aren't too far away from here. They're probably, as the crow flies, maybe like a kilometer away, maybe half a kilometer away, and I think the kudu might have spotted them, and that's why he's alarm calling. But to get back, why leopards are solitary animals, now there's a few interesting theories about it, and I'd love to hear everyone's opinion and what everyone has to say about it. But mainly, being alone also increases their chances of possibly catching something. So to give you an idea, lions rely on numbers in order to pull something down, but leopard rely on camouflage. So they're very similar to tigers. We find tigers are also by themselves. So often when they move, it's easier for one predator that makes a lot less noise than a whole pride moving together in order to catch whatever they need to catch. And also, like competition, you will see leopards are very territorial, the males and the females, and they do fight quite a bit for their territory. And the main thing is, like from a competition side, I think having a lot of leopards together and looking at the prey that they catch, they don't catch too big prey. So impala is normally what they would go for, and at most they could go for something a little bit bigger. Especially the males could go for something like a small-ish giraffe or maybe small-ish zebra or kudu. However, the females would probably go for impala, and if there's a lot more than one, there's quite a lot of competition. You'll even see with mothers, often if they have youngsters and they make a kill, especially when the youngsters get to like a year old, they'll probably finish everything and she could barely have anything. So because they're alone, it just helps them with survival. It helps them better with hunting opportunities and less competition for food. So it is the end of the kids show, but please kids, I would love to hear what everyone thinks. Like, I would love to hear what is your favorite features of this leopard. But I would also like to invite all our regular viewers to post some of the questions on what you think, and maybe even what stands out for you with this leopard. He is a beautiful male. So I'd love to hear. So while we're going to wait here a little bit to see what this leopard might be up to, let's head across to James with those elephants.
Here is a little small elephant that has been very confiding, and I think it's a young bull who's quite pleased to be around us, and he's only now decided that perhaps he should head off and join the rest of the herd. But I'm not sure that he wants to, actually. He looks like a very reluctant sort of pre-teen. Hello to those of you now watching the adult show. It's not actually an adult show, it's just the normal show. Any questions you have, of course, hashtags Safari Live. No, hashtag WildEarth, don't send them to hashtag Safari Live, that doesn't work anymore. Or the chat stream on YouTube, or the chat stream on Twitch. Let us go a little bit forward. Whoops. That was a very enthusiastic leap forward that the vehicle did. Some have headed off down there, others up this way. Not a lot of thicket in this area, so it's not quite as easy as the sighting we had on Sunday. I'm so sorry, I do apologize. I did not mean to give you a fright. Please continue as you were. Although I must say that that view of you is much better than your bottom. Yes. Good fellow. Jenna, some elephants have tusks and some don't, for the same reason that some people have big teeth and some people have small teeth, or some people have brown hair and some people have blonde hair, or some people have big feet and some people have small feet. It's just got to do with genetics. So you will find that a certain percentage of elephants are born without tusks, and that's in their genes. And I'm sure, I mean, you're 10 years old, so you haven't done a huge amount of biology yet, but basically it's the same reason, same kind of principles that have given you whatever hair color you have or whatever eye color you have. I hope that's a useful answer to you. Now, they're very peacefully grazing here. I think that they have had their drink, sort of early afternoon drink, and they will spend the next probably 3 hours feeding here. The youngsters may have a little sleep, there may be a little bit of playing, but we're into serious feeding time now. And when you think about it, they really do spend an astonishing amount of time eating. We probably spend a combined total of about, I don't know, maybe an hour a day, maybe 2 hours if you'll really spend time over your meals, actually eating food. But more time to prepare, perhaps. But the elephants, they must go probably for about, I'd say 14 hours a day. They need to, 14 or 15 hours a day they need to be eating, maybe even more than that in winter time. Taz, the elephants here probably live to about 60 to 65 years old, we think. That's probably accurate. It's just difficult to say with any massive degree of certainty because very few elephants are followed from the day they're born until the day they die. And so with any long-lived animal, it's often quite difficult to tell how old they are. And so you'll find that a lot of the records for how old animals can be come from captive animals. And so to get an idea of how long they can live in the wild is often quite difficult, especially with a long-lived species. So 60 to 65 years, we think. Possibly a little bit longer, but it makes sense around 60 to 65 years because their last set of teeth start to wear out at about, or starts to come through at about 57, and then will wear out probably at about 65. You can hear some alarm calling cisticolas behind us. Let me just understand if I'm hearing this correctly. Centauri, you're wondering if the elephants can look fat if they flap their ears. Is that right? Oh, they can look backwards. Yeah, no, they can't. That's a good question. So if you watch them walking, if they're trying to look behind themselves, it's a pity we can't show you, but what they do is they take a few steps and then they'll just turn very slightly and look behind them. So no, they can't see behind themselves without turning, just like you can't. Well, they're a bit better at than you are, but they can't see behind themselves when they're looking forward. They need to turn their heads very slightly to look behind. That's a good question. All right, let's try and get a slightly better view of them. All right, I think what we'll actually do is go down towards a little water hole and see if they aren't some aren't down there. You're going to go back to Nicky at Ngala with his leopard.
Huh? So I just want to quickly reposition the vehicle because it does look like this leopard might be going to this tree to head up the tree. Marcel, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just stopping like this. He just quickly went down for a wee. Let's see if he's going to climb up. Oh, no, he decided to go and lay down. So he's just laid down at the base of that big Ngala tree. And I think given the time, he might eventually go up because he's been constantly looking up in the tree. I've tried to see if there's maybe like a carcass or anything up there, but I haven't seen anything yet. So we'll just have to give it a bit of time and see what's happening. And also I think with him, he might even use it as a vantage point because there's so many kurus that started alarm calling at the moment. And I think those lions might be on the move that we saw earlier. And because of that, he'll probably want to get out of this area, especially if those lions are going to be around. Now there are also Impala, like from where he is, just behind the tree, maybe 100 meters less, maybe 80 meters away. There is a herd of Impala. Don't know if he spotted them yet. Doesn't look like it though. See, he's just grooming himself as we speak. Freddie, age 8 in the UK, you asked a very good question. How many leopards are left in the wild? And to be completely honest with you, I'm not aware. I can't remember the exact number. I know there was a theory the other day that someone mentioned a certain number, but I'm not too sure. I would love to know if any of our viewers have a more up-to-date list about it. But to be completely honest, I think my numbers are so rough that I don't want to just shout out a number. But I would really love to hear what everyone, the thoughts would be for everyone, because I know they're one of the most widespread cats in the world. But exactly the amount or the number of them, I'm not too sure. And I also think like the reason why I'm also saying that is because, oh, there's an Impala actually coming through. Let's see how he's going to react. Look. You can see he's definitely spotted. So what we're going to do is let's give him a bit of time. We don't want to follow him too closely though. Okay. Let's just try and see if we can maneuver around, but he is definitely like interested in those impala we saw a bit earlier. We want to keep our distance not to spoil this hunt. So if we do see him, I can see him moving, so that's good. So we're not going to try and get too close. There he goes. Just want to see where he's off to. So it's interesting, like he just basically disappeared in the grass right in front of us. So as I said, we'll slowly edge forward. The wind is blowing from him towards those impala, so he's not in the right place. He needs to try and loop around to get on that side of where the impala were. So he's just in the grass right in front of us. So we're just going to move back. So what he did is he actually just came across and he's just laying down in the grass right in front of us at the moment. So I think those impala, because they were running through, he knew it wasn't going to be an opportunity. And after that, he just came and he laid down. Let's give him some time. Let's see what he's up to. I don't know if anyone noticed that beautiful white tail, like as he's moving through the grass. So let's slowly push forward. So while we're following for a little while, let's head across to James with some elephants.
We are sitting with another herd of elephants that is probably split off from the main big group, and they've come down to a much easier place to be driving in, so this is where we are. And you'll notice that the cow you're looking at now, a young mother, seems to have, well, as I said yesterday, got her ear pierced by a side street wastrel. There we are. Definitely not a reputable jeweler that put that in her ear. Or when she was a young teenager, she decided it would look good with a safety pin in it or something, you know, like some people do, and that went wrong. Now she has a tear in her ear. David, did you ever decide that a safety pin would look nice in your ear?
I haven't.
You haven't? Yeah, no, that's really my vibe. I'm sure you can imagine me as a teenager, David, with a safety pin in my ear.
I could.
I sell cars. My favorite fact about elephants. I'll tell you what it is. I actually do know what it is. Normally I can't answer questions like that. But my favorite fact about elephants is the fact that they have 250 billion neurons in their brains. Just let that sink in. 250 billion neurons. That's a lot of neurons. And it's what part of what makes them so clever. This rebellious young mother is not worried about us at all. She's obviously seen a lot in her life. Shortish as it's been. Strange wind that seems to have now died down. Aline, I don't think that elephants with no tusks have a lower chance of survival. I think they probably have to work a little harder than their tusked counterparts, but I don't think that they would necessarily have a lower chance of survival. And I say that because, you know, although it must be difficult for them to break off branches and dig bark out of trees and that sort of thing, I don't think that they necessarily struggle that much. I'm just going to get out of the way. Good afternoon to you, my dear. Yes, hello. Oh, well, yes, I say. You are a very fine-looking elephant. I meant no offense when I was describing your ears. See what she's doing now? She's trying to keep the calf away from us. In fact, she's trying to move the whole lot a bit further away from us. Yeah, both of the cows are saying, come on, kids, let's move on. Let's not dally with these strange smelling things. It makes me feel a bit sad, I must say. I loved the fact that she came and stood in front of us like that, but the fact that she felt it necessary to kind of move everyone away from us makes me feel like maybe I was talking too loudly. Maybe she didn't like me casting aspersions on her jeweler or her jewelry as a teenager. But there was definitely an element of, come, let's move away from these people now. Sorry, Natalie, what was that about? Confirm you want me to do the support link? Okay, so as I say on a daily basis, this obviously is not a free service to broadcast. It is free to you, and if you would like to support us, you can do so using the website wildearth.tv/support, wildearth.tv/support. There they go. Now, I think it's beholden on us when we get a reaction like that to think about why it happened. Are they just moving on because they want to move on and we happen to be in their path? Or are they moving on because we were here? And I don't know in this particular instance. But I feel personally insulted, not by the elephant, but by the situation, that the elephant cow felt it necessary to shield her baby from us. So, I don't know. Maybe that's just what she would have done anyway. I wonder, though, if I wasn't talking a bit too loudly when she was further away from us. And I think it's always important to have these little self-debriefs. Very important. Erilyn, no, a wild elephant has never touched me. They've touched the car once or twice. It's something you really don't want to encourage. It's a little bit like when cheetah climb on vehicles in the Mara or in the Serengeti. Yeah, it makes great photographs and it's exciting and, a wild animal touched me, but you want to keep a barrier between you and the wildlife, because as soon as you become an integral part of the sighting as opposed to observer, you're changing behavior. Yeah, so I would prefer it if they didn't. Elephant touched the car 2 days ago, just quickly sniffed it and took its trunk away. That's fine. It's just investigating. It's finding out what's going on. What you don't want to encourage is a situation where you have an elephant that comes up and pushes the car. Eventually it gets big and decides it doesn't like you and flips the car over, which is one aspect of it. And the other aspect is you want to keep a slight separation, I think, between you and the wildlife. There's a lot of debate around that sort of thing there. Okay, I can't see any more elephants. We'll continue along this road. We might pick them up coming around the other side. All right, let's go back to Ngala, where Nikki is sitting with the Makoti male near my favorite Ngala tree.
So this male just came back and he's decided to, you'll see there's quite a bit of shade there next to that tall strand of grass. So he decided to go and lay down there for now. So early on, I think what he realized is because those impalas were running past, he knew that he didn't have the element of surprise on them. So he decided to give up on the chase, and from there on he came and he laid down. So what we're going to do is he's in quite a dense area, so we'll give it a bit of time, see if he starts moving, but maybe afterwards, if he doesn't start moving, we'll head across to those lines. But how well camouflaged. I mean, if you look at the colors, they resemble the grass so well. The only thing that I can really see about this leopard that's sticking out is just that white tip at the end of the tail that now and then you'll see flicking through the grass. What I'm going to do, I think, if you just bear with me for 1 second, I think if I do move forward, there is another gap in the grass here in order to see him. And so do you think if we move slightly forward, we'll be able to see in that gap? Let's give it a go. I mean, if it doesn't work, we can always come back to this position. But if it does work, at least we'll be able to get a slightly better view, but no guarantee though. So let's slowly push forward. Panchan from India, you asked a very good question. While I would just move the vehicle, do the leopards often take their kills up into the trees? Now, in front of me, you'll see there's quite a bit of a dense thicket with a lot of thorns. So sometimes they don't take it up into the tree and they'll actually hide it in a really dense area. I know in some of the reserves you will find that, I just quickly want to slowly maneuver. Marcel, I think you might get a glimpse there. How does that look? Okay, we just want to give it a go. If we don't get it to a better view, we're not going to push. We'll then start heading out from here. But sometimes they don't need to pull it up the trees. If there's an area where there's not a lot of hyenas around, they can just stash it on the ground because they know it will be safe. But as soon as there's a lot of hyenas around, it's easier for them and it's better for them to hoist their kills up into trees because then they at least know that the kill would be safe and out of harm's way. Now, I remember during my time as a guide with andBeyond Pinder, I've only seen a leopard drag a kill up into a tree twice during my time there, and I've been there for a few years. And so it's not a common thing because the hyena density population there is a lot lower than here. And so they don't need to do that. We're here because of the other predators around. Might also be lions, like young male lions often scavenge off leopard. So therefore they need to pull it up as high as they possibly can and into the tree. You can see it's hard to see him. He's just laid down in a very uncomfortable spot, or comfortable for him, but uncomfortable for us to see him. So we'll spend another few minutes here, but I think if he doesn't move from here, we'll probably carry on to all those lines. Bless you, Marcel. I think he's got caught a little bit of hay fever here. But I'd like to know from the viewers, so I'd love to hear from the viewers watching whose favorite animal is a leopard, and also hear how many of you have actually seen the leopard. I could have been in a zoo or maybe out on safari. And then Lucas from Brazil, you asked a very good question in regards to. Sorry, I just hit a blank there. Oh, that was the question. Are all the animals relaxed with the vehicle being here? So with this male, since he was a young cub, he's been relaxed with vehicles. And the reason being is because we don't try and push them. And by saying that is so whenever they are born, until a certain age, we don't really view them on with the vehicle. But then once they get to a stage where they're with the mum, we'll then slowly approach them. Because the mum might be used to a vehicle, we view them from far off until he accepts the fact that we're not a danger to him and we're not a threat. Or by any, he doesn't associate us with food or a threat. And so because of that, we can then view him. And then as he gets older and he becomes more comfortable, we can slowly start getting closer, but of course still keeping a good distance where he is comfortable with us being here. You'll see, like for now, he is very comfortable, but if I had to drive straight towards him, he might start getting uncomfortable with the vehicle and get up and move, and that's not what we want. We want to try and see him in his natural behavior, and the best we try to do is not to disturb him. We the spectators here, so we just want to view him and make sure that he carries on whatever he needs to do. And as soon as we get too close and he's more focused on us and instead of what he's doing, then we know we're too close and we'll move further away. So I heard there's quite a few comments coming through from some of our viewers that torn feathers. I agree with you. I also love big cats. And like, how special is this? I mean, for us, even every day, I mean, for me, the most exciting part of the morning is when you wake up and you realize, you know what, like there's a possibility of finding leopards. And the thing what makes it so exciting is you can find this leopard. Tomorrow you can come to the same spot and he might not even be here. He might be 10, 15 kilometers away from here. And it's always that whole excitement of trying to unravel their life story. Okay, what are they doing? What are they up to? Where are they going now? Because often when you need to track a leopard, you need to try and think like one. So, okay, they've made a kill, so where they're going to go now? All right, they might go to waters. Where's the nearest water? If I was a leopard, where do I want to walk? Probably go on a game trail. It's an area that's a lot easier to move on than moving through a really dense bush. So all these behaviors and all this life story, as we like learn from them and interpret it, is what we use in order to try and find them. And that's what makes it so exciting, because it's not every single day it's going to be the same thing. You might find him here today, tomorrow he might be completely in a different area doing something completely different to what we used to him seeing. So we are going to leave him be. You can see he's pretty relaxed. He's not going to be hitting any pretty soon. We'll go past those lines and see what they might be up to. But for now, let's head across to Trishula with some elephants.
Wow, we've been absolutely spoilt by Nicky and his cats. And by James and his elephants. So luckily I'm finally arriving at the party. And I too have found some elephants, which I love having sightings with. They're my favorite types of sightings. We have two bulls that are following a herd that is further in front of us. Yes. Can you hear them swishing past? Hello. Can you see that he is giving me the eye from behind a bush? They do that sometimes. Trying to throw some mud at me. Oh, just stunning. Now James was telling you some awesome things about the elephant's brain and the amount of neurons they have in it. It's not just their brain that's awesome. It's also their body. You can imagine that there's just these massive creatures. So they have trillions of cells all over to create what is a large elephant body. And the more cells they have, the higher their chance of getting cancer is. Because cancer is the uncontrolled growth of cells, and it comes from a mutation in one cell. So logically, you would think if there are more cells, then there is a higher chance that you can get cancer. And that goes for most animals, large animals, especially because they need more cells. But elephants are just awesome in that they have 20 copies of a particular gene that's called P53, codes for a special protein that does two things in an elephant cell. One, it checks whether some uncontrolled growth can be fixed or DNA damage can be fixed. And secondly, if it can't, it kills the cell in what's called apoptosis, or programmed cell death. Now, you and I, we only have 2 copies of this gene, while elephants have 20 copies. So they're continuously making proteins that help them combat getting cancer, which I just think is amazing. All these little things that go on inside of the body of these animals, streamlined from years and years and millions of years of just evolving to have the best possible body plan, and not just body plan, as you would tell, but also inside of them, right down to the genetics. I'm going to grab that question from you again, please, Natalie. I think it was about where elephants get their water from, but I didn't catch the name. Arminius, you'd like to know where elephants get water from. That's a really awesome question, because I'm sure the elephants are also concerned about where they get water from. We have numerous dams scattered along our property, all of which are very nice and full, and that makes the elephants very, very happy. But in times of drought, you'll find that they travel thousands of kilometers, if they really want to, in search for water. And that's very, very important to them, because they are so large and they need to cool down. So water is not just necessary for drinking, which they can do, of course, and they can fill up that trunk with about 10 liters of water at a time and just spew it into their mouth, if not more, at least 10 liters. And so they need to drink water, but they also get water, or the moisture content, from the leaves that they're constantly eating, grass and other vegetation. But they also really enjoy playing in water, and that's why it's so important to them. So in times of drought, they will travel vast distances in search of it, but they will also be able to sniff out water. They have an incredible sense of smell. They actually can smell out pre-ingestive cues. So they can smell if a plant is something that they would like or not like, based on the chemicals that is basically in the air that's coming off the plant's leaves. So they can smell out water, and when they do that, they can also smell out water that's closer to the ground, or the surface of the ground, and then they will go out and kick kind of the ground there and dig a hole. Hello, little bee. They'll dig a hole, and you'll find that there's a little bit of water at the bottom of it, which is what they will drink. So they hardly ever are stuck without a means of getting some moisture. They're just unbelievable creatures, from the tiniest details to their large bodies. Wimbledon Womble. You would like to know if it's true that elephants recognize themselves in a mirror? I don't know, but given their cognitive abilities, I would not think in fact, I think it's probably very possible that they can recognize that they're seeing themselves in a mirror. I don't mean that they recognize their features, but that they may play by touching themselves, etc., and then figure out that it is themselves in a mirror. Just from looking at their face, I don't know, because then they would have to be familiar with what their face looks like. But I'm sure there are experiments that have done that. with animals. And I think elephants would be an awesome test subject for that kind of thing. That's a really interesting topic, animal consciousness and awareness or self-awareness. But it's just such a difficult thing to study. We can only study it on a very basic level. And when you do these things, it's all so subjective that it becomes very difficult to have a quantitative analysis of consciousness or self-awareness, because it is inherently self and subjective. Well, elephants have moved further in, unfortunately for me, but at least I got to feature in the elephant party, which I'm very, very excited about. I love them very much. There are two youngish bulls following them, and you'll find that in a herd, young bulls are kind of, what is the right word? Humid. There we go. In that very few of them are able to mate. I mean, they're mature enough to mate by the time they're in their 20s, and bless you, and by the time they're like 27 and stuff, you'd really want them to be able to mate, but unfortunately, they're not able to until they're about in their 30s. Otherwise, they're just taken up by other bulls. Anyway, I found them again, so I'm going to spend some time, and I'll send you back over to Nikki, from what I heard, at least.
So we left that young male. He wasn't doing too much. He was just laying down in the grass. So what we're hoping for, there's a big water hole not too far away from where we are now, is to maybe go past that water hole and see if there's anything there. And then afterwards, as soon as it starts cooling down, there's a hyena den that's not too far away from there. So I don't know if we even caught these youngsters on camera as of yet, but it was only a week ago when we found this den. So I'm super excited. Like, I just want us to get there so we can have a look. But first we'll go past the water, just wait for it to cool down a bit, and then maybe go down to that hyena den. But as we were driving, I'm carefully scanning the trees. Now yesterday, myself and Yapi were doing a bit of a walk in the river, and just on this side, and there were quite a few tracks of a female and a young cub. This is the one that we saw the other night, the one with the beautiful white at the tip of the ears, that Ngala female and her daughter. Now their tracks were around here as well. So now we're trying to see if there's any signs of them up in the trees. I'm looking in the shade, little flashes of white, maybe the movement. Oh, hold on. When they flick their ears. There are quite a few hyena tracks as well on the road. And I think it might have been either from that leopard, that young male that made a kill last night. I know when Sean was there, there was a hyena apparently that stole the kill. And it could have been from that hyena, or maybe even this morning, there could have been a few hyenas coming down this road to see if there's any opportunity. But for now, we are heading down to that water hole to go and see what we can find there. Elida, you were asking a good question. Are any of the water holes man-made? So the one that we are going to is. So there's a few that are man-made and a few that are natural. The man-made ones were actually made by the previous owner that used to own this area. And then once we as andBeyond then took over from that, we didn't built or touched any of the dams or the water holes. So we just left them the way they were because they were already well established, and that's how we kept them. So we don't actually pump any of those water holes. So while we're carrying on towards the water hole, I heard Trishala is under attack by a little elephant. So let's head across to her.
Look at this, guys. This baby elephant is attacking me. I was just sitting very calmly herd was in the distance, and I was waiting for them to come, and I had a bit of biltong, and I was just chewing on my biltong. And then this little guy decided, no. No, no, no. No biltong for me, no biltong for you. You are absolutely adorable. So Mum's just in the background, feeding. And this guy here is just playing around. Yes, I see you. This thing is tiny. I would say about just over a year old. Still doesn't pass under Mum anymore. I'm getting a side eye there. You are learning from the best. I often have to do this, really, youngsters, because this is the way that elephants defend themselves. And they have to learn. And you'll find that when they do this kind of thing, especially the little ones, they feel quite safe. Because they feel that there's no real threat, so they can come running at me without a problem. Still looking at me. It's just behind that silver cluster leaf now. No, it's backing up. Gone. There's a couple of them behind there. Oh, he's gonna come again. You coming at me again? Hello, Sophia. You're 7 years old and you'd like to know how big are baby elephants when they're born? Many times the weight of you, Sophia. They're about 100 kgs, not a little bit more than that. And that's just when they're born. So they're very hefty little newborns. Let's see if it'll follow Mum now. They're all in this timberwoody thicket, then they're going to actually meet up with the herd that we saw earlier. Oh, there's Rascal. You can see that it no longer passes under Mum's belly, and that's one of the things we look for when we try to age them. And when they're under under Mum's belly. That's a nice way to remember it. And also, once they start showing their little tusks, they're about 2 or 3 years old. Before that, they just have little tushes that actually grow in the same spot as tusks do, but they don't peek out and you don't get to see them. In fact, they only get about 5 centimeters or so, and then they get reabsorbed. And that actually adds direction to the actual tusk that comes about. Oh, yay! Elephantastic day. I'm so glad that I could show you myself under attack. Now I'm going to get back to my biltong and I will send you over to James.
Our elephants we caught up with as we went around the block, and they're heading into a relatively thick area. We'll stay with them for a little while and just see if we shouldn't perhaps head off and try and find something else, because I don't want to harass them through there. I just wanted to describe the smell to you, and I don't know how many of you have been to a stable yard before. I'm sure most of you have been to a stable yard. But it's a very similar smell to the smell of a horse. It's just slightly... I'm trying to decide. I guess it's slightly more earthy, but it is very similar. Let's go up to the one that's pulling that tree down now. And it's a lovely comforting smell if you know elephants, and if the elephants are not charging you. If the elephants are chasing you down the road at 60 kilometers an hour, the smell becomes somewhat more terrifying than the comforting smell of a stable yard. Now, they'll normally be completely tolerant of us, as long as we're not crashing and bashing bushes behind them. Well, Jack, you're in Singapore, so obviously there's not a lot of wildlife around where you are, A, and B, I don't know if you're allowed to keep a pet or not, but if you are, then you will know that your pet probably has feelings. You know, when a dog is happy, you can tell almost when a cat is happy, although cats don't like to tell you very much. You can tell when your dog is sad. And I think elephants are the same, and I think that most of the wild animals out here are the same. They can feel a certain level of happiness and sadness or excitement, anger, frustration, love. Not the same as us, but I think they have versions of the same sorts of feelings. Here's one having a suckle. Little one just trying to feed from mum there. So yes, Jack, I think they do. You'll find people who tell you that they don't think that that's true. To me, those people are not thinking straight. For a long time, it was very unfashionable to say that elephants had any kind of, or that any animal had emotions that could be likened to human emotions. But I just think that's ridiculous. If we can liken the fact that they have to eat to survive, that they are driven by the same things that we are. They try to mate, they try to have youngsters, they look after their babies, to try and suggest that therefore, or that for some reason they therefore shouldn't have similar emotions, I think is just ridiculous. And I had a riding teacher once who said to me when I was just starting to learn about this sort of thing, and she said to me, anybody who's ever owned a dog knows that animals can feel. Yes, Melissa, they do. Elephants definitely get tired of standing up, and sometimes they lie down, especially the little ones. The little ones will regularly lie down, not for very long, but they will lie down sometimes for half an hour or so, and they get up. Most of the time they sleep standing up, though, because apparently it's quite dangerous for them to lie down for too long. The blood starts to pool in various parts of the body, and really for the heart to effectively pump blood around the body, they need to be standing up. Look how dexterously that one is taking the bark off and getting at the cambium layer. That's the vascular layer of the plant. And she'll throw away the wood when she's finished the nutritious stuff on the outside of it. Look how amazingly dexterous she is. Oh, that's obviously a delicious tree. The one behind's done the same. He's picked up a nice big stick. I must say, being around elephants makes me feel very relaxed and makes me feel also slightly ashamed of the hurried way in which I live my life. There's always a rush to get from breakfast, to go to my desk, to get up and go and do my exercises or whatever it is. There's always a rush. It's never a considered slow approach like the elephants take. And you'll see that one picking up a stick, turning it over, deciding if it's a good thing to eat, and then slowly putting it in his mouth, having a chew, putting it down, moving on to the next thing. It's very systematic, slow, considered. I mean, I'm sure they're not all like that. Some of them probably a bit like me. But we as human beings tend to, especially in the Western world, operate at this frenetic pace. And 90% of the time, of course, the frenetic pace gets us things like the financial crisis and other such delights. I'm just going to try and see if I can sneak through this little bush here so we're not looking through it. They're nice and relaxed. If they start to look like they might be less than relaxed, I'll stop. But I think this Combretum bush is going to take a bit of a beating this afternoon. It might be quite fun to watch. Not for the Combretum, obviously, but for us. All right, David?
Yeah.
I'm going to stop here, if that's okay. Yeah? Except now there's another bush in the way. Is that okay, Dov?
Yeah.
So you'll see now they've all concentrated on one tree. One of the, or in fact there are two trees there. One of them is a marula, or is it? Yes, it's a marula tree. That's the most mangled one there. And then underneath it is a bush willow. And that's the one that they're eating. So they've broken off pieces of marula, not eaten very much of it, and now they're picking up pieces of the bush willow. Yes. Yes, they will indeed. Vicky, expecting mothers give birth normally in the middle of the herd, and it's a tremendously exciting thing for the herd, it would seem. It's obviously quite difficult to interpret. But she'll be protected by the herd, she'll be looked after while she gives birth, and then the whole herd will start to take care of the baby. And I'm always minded when I see it, not the actual birth. I've never seen an actual birth. But I'm always minded when I see a little baby elephant being looked after by the whole herd of how ineffective the human nuclear family is for infant humans, and how exhausted we are, certainly in Western society, by the process of raising infants. Whereas in an elephant herd, or in some of the villages outside of the game reserve, you know, it's unthinkable that only the parents would have to look after the yowling infant. Everyone helps out. And that means that mum doesn't always have that shocked look of absolute exhaustion on her face, which certainly happened to my brother and sister-in-law and various other friends of mine. Whereas I remember very clearly when I was teaching up in a game reserve area near Palabora, which is about 200 kilometers north of where we are now. I remember one of the ladies I was teaching gave birth halfway through the course we were doing. And I think she missed maybe a week of class. And then she just brought the baby to class and somebody would have it. She seldom was actually the one holding the baby unless it needed to be fed. No fuss, no problem, no tired, just nice and easy, and everyone mucked in. And I thought, gosh, that looks like the best way to have a youngster. And elephant herds do exactly the same sort of thing. However, I think trying to convince my good wife that we should move to a rural village in Gazankulu to bear our heir will be quite difficult. I mean, there are obviously other great challenges of living in the villages out here, but that's not one of them. I'm going to move again very slightly. So we keep our distance because this is the same herd that chose to move away from us a little earlier, and I don't know why. Is that right, Dov? It's not the best shot, but it's probably fine. You can see them eating their wood there. They're not actually eating the wood, they're eating the vascular tissue around the wood. No, Annette, this is very interesting. And, I mean, I discuss this quite frequently because it's something I find very interesting. But emotion displayed on faces is the preserve of primates and carnivores largely. And even carnivores have limited ability to express themselves by facial expressions. And it's just because they don't have the muscles for it. So an elephant does not have the muscles to frown, smile, look concerned, draw its lips up over its teeth to show either aggression or a smile, like we do. And so you cannot read an elephant's emotional state. I'm talking too loudly now. You cannot read an elephant's emotional state from its facial expressions because its face doesn't change. You read it from the rest of its body language, the way it lifts its head up, opens its ears out, holds its tail out, perhaps stops feeding, swings its trunk around, lifts up one of the front feet. So, there are lots of different ways you can tell how an elephant's feeling, but a facial expression is not one of them. Now, it goes the same for all of the antelope here. They have no ability to show a facial expression. Same with a zebra, a giraffe. They've got mobile lips, but they don't use them to, as far as we know, show any kind of emotional state. When you get to the carnivores, obviously that's a little bit different. You know that an angry carnivore will move its ears back in anger. It'll also lift its top lip up to show its teeth. Same with baboons, they do the same thing. But even things like chimpanzees and baboons, although they are expressive with their faces, don't bring anything like the complexity of facial expression that we as human beings do. And they just don't have the muscles for it. Whereas our faces have evolved to tell stories. And if you doubt that, just go and watch Jim Carrey or Rowan Atkinson and you'll see. Oh, Darv, you're wondering if trees have hearts, because I used the term vascular when I was talking about the trees and the vascular system of trees. No, trees don't have hearts, but they've definitely got a vascular system. They've got two basic kinds of vessels. I suppose vascular comes from the word vein, doesn't it? Rather than the word vessel. So maybe that is the wrong word. I don't know where the word comes from. Anyway, they've got two sets of vessels that run up and down the bark, the inside of the bark. One is the xylem and the other is the phloem. And the xylem carries water from the roots up to the leaves, and the phloem carries nutrients from the leaves down to the roots, so carbohydrates mainly. And it's that the elephants are going for. Maybe vascular system is incorrect. No, I'm sure vascular comes from the word vessel, because Venus comes from vein. So I don't think vascular implies a heart. If I am incorrect in my English, I do apologize. All right, we'll probably maybe spend another segment with these chaps. In the meantime, you're going to go back to Ngala and see what's potting that end, where they seem to have cats dripping out of every tree.
So we went past the water hole. We didn't see too much. With all the wind blowing at the moment, the water is very choppy. So we decided to come past this one hyena den and spend a bit of time here and see if this hyena would come out with her youngsters. Now, we haven't seen anything as of yet, but I'm thinking like we'll probably give it another 10 or so minutes and just listen out. We haven't heard anything yet, and so from where this termite mount is, it's just on that side of it is where the entrance is of this particular den site. So we'll have to wait here patiently and hear if we can hear anything, or maybe even see if the mother's moving around. Normally the best time to be looking out for mother den is earlier in the morning. When the mum comes back, often she'll come back and then call the youngsters, and they'll come out, lay in the sun, and they'll suckle. Or in the late afternoon, sometimes they'll come out. But in the heat of the day, don't really find them outside. The mum would go in and lay with the youngsters. Now, there are other females around with her, with also youngsters, but they're a little bit older. They're close to a year old, but these ones we think might be around 3 months old. It's the first time we've seen them, so it would be really worth it for us just to spend that bit of time, and hopefully from there on we can then make a well-rounded decision if we need to stay here or maybe start carrying on with our drive. So there's quite a few tracks around, like you can see where the termite mount is. There's a little pathway that goes up and down, and so probably they've been around over the last little while, but it's hard to see if there's any fresh tracks coming out, because often whenever she does come out, she'll first come out, make sure everything is safe, and then from there on she'll call the youngsters and they'll come up and join with her. Just trying to, like, as we're sitting here, I'm trying to scan the vegetation in the back to see if there's any movement. Because what I have noticed as well before is often you, like, even if you find the termite and you think the den is there, the mum might just be laying a little bit further away under a tree or maybe in the shade, and eventually come back to the den. But you can see it is a beautiful area, and also if you look at all the shadows of the tree, it is getting to that late part of the afternoon where everything is starting to cool down. Amazing Nature, you've asked a good question. Do we always have to be in uniform? Like, to be completely honest, we love our uniform. And the thing is, even if you like forget your name badge or even your notebook, it feels like you're naked, like you don't have everything with you. But always, whenever we're with guests, we have our uniforms on. And it does feel quite weird walking in the bush, because often you want to make a little note, and if you don't have uniform, you're like, oh, where's my notebook? Or you need like your Leatherman, and you're like, but I don't have a multi-tool with me at the moment in order to cut a branch or a sample. So I think uniform, we pretty much prefer uniform if we can. But to answer the question, whenever we're with guests, we definitely always wear uniform. I think what we'll do, in order to save a little bit of time, because it is still going to be a drive to head to those big male lions that we saw this morning, and because they are separated from the pride, it'll be interesting to see how they're going to react with that. Now, we have sat here for, prior to everyone coming back to the camera, for at least 5 to 10 minutes, and we haven't seen anything, we haven't heard anything. So I think for now, probably worth it for us just to carry on. We'll just slowly drive up these open areas, see if there's maybe any other animals around at the moment. But I don't think, if we don't see any signs here, it might be worth it for us to carry on and maybe go look for those male lions from this morning. But for now, I think maybe let's carry on with our search. Arian and Relic, you asked a good question. What do I do when I'm not on drive? So whenever we get back, sometimes we help around the lodge wherever we can if there's anything that needs to be done. But if I'm driving guests and I get back, then sometimes, okay, my first thing that I'll do is I'll go have a nice breakfast, because then normally it's like 9, 9:30, 10, depends on what the guests see and what we've seen on drive. It could be early, it could be later. So then a good breakfast. After breakfast, like I love to do maybe possibly a little workout. So some of the rangers, we just try and put a few weights together and just do a few body exercises whenever we can. And then from there on, a good lunch, and then do a bit of reading or just a bit of downtime. And then from there on, we go on our afternoon drive again. But I would say mainly our off time, we try to make it as productive as possible. The other day we had a bit of time off, and we actually did quite a nice long walk in one of the riverbeds, just to patrol and see if there's anything interesting along the way. We found some beautiful rocks, and there's also, in this area there are quite a few There's quite a few interesting landscapes and valleys, and it's just a beautiful area. But for now, let's head across to Trashala with the bird.
I have a bird, everyone. It is an African harrier hawk, or gymnogene, as a lot of South Africans have called it. And it is being very polite this afternoon, as there are a number of drongos and starlings around it that are actually not swooping it for once. I love when the wind catches the back of the head and then that lovely plume stands up. I think it's just gorgeous. Oh, there it goes. Oh, and there the drongos are onto it. And past the aerial. Oh, that's just gorgeous. So the reason why the drongos would do that. Oh, we have another birdie here. Let's have a look. It's a Batelia. The reason why the drongos are getting upset with that harrier hawk is because it likes to eat nestlings and eggs. And the last thing they want is any of their kind being eaten. The Batelia is just a non-participating spectator. I think Batelias have to be one of my favorite birds. I just think they're wonderfully creepy. And I say that because I like that. I think if Dracula were to have a bird, it would be a Batelia. So we have a male here. Females have another kind of band of white on their primary feathers down there. So we have a lonely male. You'll often find large birds perched on dead trees, and that's because they need to be able to move. And if you have branches and leaves, etc., all sticking out, and you have a large wingspan, and you're tall, then you're not able to move very, very quickly. Batelia has something like a 1.8 meter wingspan. And off it goes too. The birds are looking lovely today. They're all kind of just gliding through. Hi India, you're 10 years old and you're from Joburg. You'd like to know why male birds are more brightly colored than female birds. That is because the males have to compete for the females. So they don't do that by fighting. They don't do that by having horns to fight other males or by big size. Instead, they do that by prettiness. So one male with a brightly colored red collar is a little bit more attractive, or a little more attractive to the females. So that male with the bright red collar, he's the one that gets to mate and have babies. So that gene for the bright red collar gets passed on. And then those animals, those birds that don't have the bright red collar, they can't reproduce because none of the females want to mate with them because they don't look as pretty. And so they don't get to mate and don't get to push their genes forward. So we call that sexual selection. That means that based on how good they look and whether the male dominates or the female dominates, those are the individuals that get to mate, and so the whole kind of thing becomes extravagant. It starts off with a couple spots, with a couple bright feathers, and birds are a great example of sexual selection because they have taken it to the extreme where males are very colorful, they have long streamers, they have beautiful tail feathers, and females can be quite drab. And that also comes down to investment. That means how much an animal's body how much energy it can use up and spend to look good. So the females, because they're not competing, they don't need to spend lots of energy trying to look good. But the males, because it matters to their survival how much energy they spend and to look good, they will keep on spending that energy. So the females are not just drab because they don't need to look pretty, but because it takes a lot of energy to look pretty and to produce those fancy colors and fancy displays. So the females don't need to spend all that energy doing that. That's why you end up with such a disparity, such a large difference between what the females look like and what the males look like. Sometimes they look like totally different species. It's quite an interesting phenomenon. Humans don't quite have that. At least not yet. But we are also changing and evolving to some extent. David, I almost got that question. It was about female birds and genetics. But Natalie is going to help me out. David, you ask, is it that the female bird has poor genetics? Absolutely not. That is not the case. It is more that the male bird needs to have this costly investment in order to attract mates. So it needs to invest money to attract mates. So let us assume that all the females in the Kruger National Park, humans, will only go for men that wear Versace. This is just an example. So that doesn't mean that it really has nothing to do with the females. All it has to do with is how the males compete to use Versace. Now, they can't help that the females like Versace, and Versace happens to be expensive. So it doesn't mean that the females are poor and can't afford Versace. Perhaps they can, it's just not necessary in order for them to mate. So just like that, it's not necessary for the females to invest in the energy it takes to produce the fancy feathers. Also the risk. It's also very risky to be so obvious, to be so colorful, so shiny. Oftentimes risky.
Sorry about that, everybody. So it goes, so it goes. We are now on the hunt for a predator. We left our elephants going into the thick bush, and I must just quickly apologize, and I wonder if anybody picked it up, but that tree that I was talking about underneath, or above, sorry, the bush willow wasn't a marula tree, it was a false marula tree. I got a bit closer to it and realized the mistake I'd made. You don't need to worry, I did take a stick out of the wilderness and beat myself savagely for making the mistake, and so I do apologize. And for those of you who took any offense at my obvious mistake, I am sorry. If I could wear sackcloth and put ash on my head, I would do so, I assure you. But taking a game drive in sackcloth with ash on your head just looks silly. I always hate doing that when I don't mind making a mistake while we're on air, because then, you know, you can rectify it. But to realize your mistake while you're off air, oh, it's just too dreadful. It's not as dreadful as when you get back and the viewer very kindly tells you, you know what, I made a wrong call on that flower or that tree. Now, what we're going to do over here, well, we're going to try, is get into a position where we can scan the tippy tops of the trees. Let's just go a little bit through here. On the off chance that Shai Dulu, who we think has come through this area, has stashed some meat in a tree. And So we'll just go a little bit here, sort of this area. Now, it's very difficult because naturally, anywhere you go in a gently undulating as opposed to severely undulating area, you're going to find that there is bush in the way of your view. But this is a relatively high point, and so I shall scan with my binoculars and see if I can see the telltale draped limb of a leopard cat in a marula tree, or a false marula tree, or a knobthorn, or a brown ivory, or a leadwood. What is that big, beautiful tree over there? I think it is a brown ivory, but I do not see any telltale draped limbs. Or indeed the unfortunate draped limb of a recently deceased antelope. I have a theory that the leopards are doing much less hoisting than they would normally, and that is because they can hide in the thick bush without the need to hoist their kills into trees. Sound of the Cape turtle dove. David, do you see any obvious signs of a leopard draped in a tree?
Don't.
Oh dear. It's quite an interesting cloud formation in the southeast there. And the next thing to look for, of course, is the termite mounds. Well, I suppose we should continue. I see no spots, no tawny cats. Right, apparently Trishala's signal is back and she is ready to continue whatever story it was that she was telling you.
Yay, my signal is back. Sorry about that, guys. You might have unceremoniously been cut off during my Versace story. Anyway, I think the last thing I said was, in regards to birds and sexual selection, is that though females will be able to afford Versace, they don't necessarily have to spend on the Versace, because it's not necessary in order for them to find a mate, but is necessary for the males to find a mate. That doesn't mean that she has less money than the males, just that doesn't mean that her genetics are less quality than that of the males. So she still has the right genetics, good genetics, nothing wrong with them, but she doesn't need to spend the extra energy in order to find a mate, and that's what the males have to do. So to answer, I think it was David's question, she does not have inferior genes just because she is not brightly colored. She is likely to have a higher survival rate as well, because she's less conspicuous and less likely to be pursued by predators. I don't know if you've seen, and I'd love to show you a paradise wide-out. They're gorgeous, and there's a few of them, and they're tiny little birds. But during the mating season, or breeding season, the male has... Oh, everybody's going to look at me for a second. Hello, Rex. It was Rex and friends, I think. Anyway, the paradise wide-out has a really, really long tail, grows a really long tail, these large feathers. In fact, maybe 3 of them, 2 very long ones and one that looks like a bit of a hump. And what happens is when you see them fly, they struggle. It's really difficult for them to fly with this new plumage, their breeding plumage, but it still attracts the females. It also does something else. It lets the females know that this male can put himself at risk, and even though he is being risky, he's still alive. And that kind of feeds into the liking bad boys hypothesis with humans. And that males can display this risky behavior. And although it might be stupid behavior, regardless, they still manage to stay alive. So that must count for something. And for some reason, it means to us that they are fit in terms of their survival. Yes, who would have thought that liking the rebellious boys can actually have a scientific basis. There you go. Well, now we're at Treehouse Dam, which is where I was trying to head to. And alas, there are no ellies. Elephant, elephant. Oh. I know we've had so many ellies today, but there's a big difference between just seeing them walking around and seeing them having the time of their lives in the water, which is something that I absolutely love to see. You can actually, you know, with James, you were talking about expressions and whether elephants have different facial expressions, etc. While they definitely don't have a large array of them that we can recognize, perhaps there's some that they can. I'm not sure what James discussed with you guys, but one thing you can see when they come down to drink or play in the water is that they have a spring in their step, and you can notice a difference, and that's what I love to see when ellies come down here. Isn't that just gorgeous? I love it. Okay. Well, I'm going to now head out west a little bit. Hopefully get a glimpse of one of our leopards out that area. I mean, lovely, just wonderful. Everyone is loving my shirt. Ta-da. Thank you very much. I love it too. There's elephants on it, cheetah on it. It's just great. Okay, let's head out to the west, see if we can catch a glimpse of Shidulu or Hukumuri. Two leopards that I really, really like. Okay, off I go, and I'll send you over to Nikki at andBeyond Ngala and see what he's getting up to.
So we left at our hyena den. Unfortunately, we didn't see any hyenas coming out, which would have been absolutely amazing. But we do have another plan. We always have to have a little plan. So the plan is, we're going to start heading into that area where we saw the male lions this morning. And hopefully, because of the rest of the pride being separated, hold on, there's a little bump. Just want to make sure Marcel stays in. So we'll head straight to that area and see if we can find those male lions. And who knows, maybe because they are apart, what we're hoping for is first that we do find them. Secondly, is that they'll start roaring. And that would be magical. As Marcel says, he says magical. So let's head there. It's not too far a drive. It'll probably take another 5 or so minutes. But it is cooling down, so I'm thinking that if these lions aren't going to be moving, hopefully they haven't moved too far, but if they aren't moving, we might be very lucky this evening. Now, Rowan went past that area a bit earlier on this afternoon, and he said to me that he saw them there, so touch wood that they'll be there. But for now, let's head across to James with a Warthog. There's a Impala ram right in the road. Let's just give him a bit of time just to have something to eat as he moves off.
I think we're live. Is this the it's a little bus throwing there, Natalie. This is not the Warthog's best angle. I'd say it's his worst angle, actually. I'm not really sure what else to say about him right now. Well, thankfully, he's turning his head slightly. There we go, that's better. Now we can see his tusks. And he's having a bit of a graze. Now, someone asked this morning what the sharpest teeth were out here in the bush, and I said I thought it was warthog tusks, the bottom tusks. They, I think, are the most sharp bits of dentistry out here. And I would go closer, but the wart pigs here tend to be very nervous. And there are two of them. There are two boars. A question from Attila, I'm assuming not the Hun. Attila, you're wondering what... It's a serious question. Will our arms evolve to be 2 meters long with social distancing? Well, I'm going to answer it as if it's a serious question. It's an interesting one. So, if an appendage like an arm was going to get longer, there would have to be a really good reason for it, and it would have to confer some kind of advantage on... So reproductive advantage on the person. So let's pretend somebody was born tomorrow and they grew up to have 2 meter long arms. Would this help them to be reproductively more successful? And I don't think it would. So I'm assuming this was a serious question. Having 2 meter long arms might help you to gauge the distance between yourself and someone else, but would it actually help you to gauge the distance between yourself and someone else that much more accurately, that in so much so that it would make you more healthy than someone else and therefore more able to leave a genetic legacy? And my answer to that would be no, I don't think it would. If, however, human beings had absolutely no way of judging distance with their eyes, which they don't, so we're quite good at judging distance with our eyes. If human beings couldn't do that, and then someone was born with a random genetic mutation that gave them 2 meter long arms, and therefore this resulted in them getting less sick than everyone else, then yes, absolutely, human beings would probably eventually evolve arms that were 2 meters long. But remember, for that to happen, it would have to be such that, you know, we'd have to be attempting social distancing and failing at it for probably hundreds of thousands of years, or certainly tens of thousands of years, before that random genetic mutation would result in lengthening arms. Does that make sense? If you were joking, I'm sorry. I've gone into a long treatise for no reason, but I think that it's quite an interesting discussion anyway, especially for those of you who are interested in evolutionary theory. Thank you, Attila. H.M. Macy, do warthog tusks grow their whole lives? I'm going to say yes, they probably do. Like with most things that have protuberances like horns, they probably slow down as the animal gets older. But yeah, the older the warthog, definitely the bigger the tusks. So I'm going to say yes, they probably do. Also, the bottom one is being continually occluded. So rubbed against the top one, which makes it very, very sharp. And I imagine that process would eventually wear the tooth away completely if it didn't keep growing. Just hear a Cokie Franklin calling there. That's that time of the day when it just gets so beautiful and peaceful. David, we can have a look at that lapwing over there if you would like to. It is a Senegal lapwing. See it? In the beautiful light. It's pretty quiet, isn't it? It's lovely and quiet. Sylvia, I'm assuming you're watching with your parents, and I think that they're probably better qualified to answer this question. Why does the warthog have two bums? It doesn't. It's only got one. The other bum is not actually a bum. It is the separation between his testes. And I will allow your parents, who are no doubt watching with you, to explain what that means. So he's only got one bum. And then we'll just have a quick look at the drongos up at the top of that dead tree over there. They're flitting around. Oh, they're still there, Dolph. Can you see them? They're such fun birds because they're always doing something, such as chasing each other, hawking insects. Now they're hawking insects, there we go, and fighting with each other. Fantastic. Right, let's go back to Trishala. I think she's managed to find the elephant herd that I suspect was heading towards Treehouse Waterhole.
Oh, James, I wish they were moving in that direction, but they seem to have already had their fun at Treehouse and are now moving down towards Sutton Border, away from Juma. Cute little things. So this is Mum at the base of that big jackalberry, and she is chomping down on some grass and a bit of baby jackalberry, and of course their favorite, some sandpaper raisin bush. Elephants just love that. That's the one. In fact, her and her little calf were so engrossed in their feeding, they did not even give us a look when we came past. Not even a look, and that's quite surprising because she has a little one. Oh, something's irritating your leg there. That's very cute. Oh no, is it bothering you? Looks like a white berry bush that might be bothering this little calf. Hello, gorgeous. Now you can see there's tiny little tusks peeking out from this individual, and I did say to you that the tusks that are actually formed when they are very little, the tushes, are not visible. So this is not these are not tushes, these are the actual elephant's tusks. Of course, as soon as I want to talk about the little tusks, this little one hides away. But you can see that they're very tiny. They've just started to show through. It's probably about 2 years old or so. Oh! Can you see that one's little trunk is going into Mum's mouth, trying to get some food out of there too. Find your own food, she says. There's those tiny little tusks. In fact, you can barely see them. I can spend all day watching elephants. I really can. So this is actually right outside the old hyena den. That was the Shibamu Road Junction Hyena Den. It's nice to see other animals make good use of it, especially since when the hyenas were denning here, it was such a stronghold, hyena territory. Very few other animals will come strolling past. Where is the rest of your herd? I feel like they may have gotten distracted by the raisin bush that tends to grow around mounds. And as long as Mum is around, then it's all good. Have to make some sacrifices for a tasty snack. They are so calm. Absolutely almost happy with my presence. Just gorgeous. Alright, we're going to keep making our way west, and we'll send you back over to Nicky, who's made his way to those lions. Hopefully I'll find a cat too.
So we got back to that open area where the two male lions were this morning, and they have moved into a bit more of an open area. You can see their heads are still down, but earlier on, myself and Marcel heard some members of the pride calling. I think that's probably why they've moved out a little bit now. It is getting to that part of the evening when they'll probably start either moving or they might start roaring. So it's one of those things where we say, you got to risk it for the biscuits. We'll spend some time here and see what's going to happen with these lions. Now this does look like, so as we mentioned, so these are the two Ross males, so the two brothers. Now this one here is the one with the darker mane. So you'll notice around his head that he has quite a lot of dark mane from between his shoulder blades all the way up to between his ears, where the other one is more blonde in color. It doesn't have as many dark streaking on the mane as this one. But just have a look at this beautiful sunset just behind us I'll just lean out of the way. So now we're looking at these lions, but have a look at the sun setting just behind us. So for now, let's quickly head across to Trishola, because apparently she's found some wild dogs.
We found some dogs, and we're still exactly where the elephant was. Okay, I see 4 wild dogs. They're very calm. They came down here to drink, and then they saw this large female with her calf that we were just with. Now this is awesome. Okay, now I just need to be careful of her because she might get angry with me because I'm close to her, or she's rather moved close to me to try and avoid the dogs. Okay, they're moving to Treehouse Dam. All right. Hello, girl. It's okay, girl. That's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Now, I can't follow them because I can't actually move from here with her this close and this upset at the moment, although she was very calm earlier. Just need to see if they're going to start eating again, and then I can move. Okay. Oh, we're good. Are we happy? Okay. So tail is still, there we go. She's relaxed. She's an excellent Eddie. It's okay, little one. This little one's getting a little bit nervous. Now, where is the rest of that pack? Because I don't know any 4-dog pack. It's okay. She wanted to give me a shake. Oh, more than a shake. She's probably quite upset that there were dogs. All right, doggies. Let's find them. I'm guessing they went to Treehouse Dam. Let's go. What I'm thinking, we'll get to the dam and go around. I'm not seeing any tracks on the road, so we'll turn around in a bit. Ah, there they are. These things move fast. Really fast. Hello, puppies. It is wonderful to see you guys. So if they're going to go to Treehouse Dam, that would just be awesome. Now there were dogs up or down at Chitwa in the south, and there was some at JC Sabi House as well, by the airstrip. Let's take a shortcut, yeah. Look at them go! I must firstly say a very big thank you to that elephant who was wonderful to us. As soon as she saw that threat was done and was gone, she was absolutely fine. Okay, she's gonna wait here. Looks like they saw something interesting. They're heading straight for the dam, which is just awesome. Oh, wild dogs are just a pleasure to see, and we've been seeing so many of them, and so been having so many sightings with them. Hello, puppy. How are you doing? What are you smelling? Oh, it's gonna bite some grass. You know, why not? Why not? We've been having so many awesome sightings with them, and new viewers will think that this happens often. It does not. It does not. We can go months without seeing dogs, and when we do, it's an absolute pleasure. Hey, Sir 50. You'd like to know, hang on, let's just see what they're up to here. You'd like to know if they broke away from a larger pack? That's what I think. So they're rolling around in some elephant dung at the moment. Eating a bit of it too. There we go. Sir 50, I think that they have. I don't know a four dog pack, like I said. And there have been reports of dogs from 2 places in the south. So now they'll do that to mask their own smell. This is the time that they'd want to go hunting. The crepuscular times when the sun is starting to set, the sun is just starting to rise. And they're being excellent to us. You have to always thank the animals for being well behaved and not giving you trouble. Now, these guys, whew, you are smelly. These guys can run off in all directions. They're very fast. As you saw, just when I was speeding through, Owen said he doesn't think they'll be this far. And I also thought, let's just check, but they were very, very far. And that's because they can be so speedy, sometimes more than you actually expect. Let's see these wonderful creatures have a drink. No, you don't want to have a drink? Okay, fine. Come on, go on to the dam. Go on, have a drink at the dam. Hi, Aryan in Holland. You'd like to know how many dogs are needed to catch prey? Yes, they're going to the dam. They can do it with 4. It obviously depends on what prey you're talking about. If they're going to grab a full-grown male impala, maybe 6 is a better number. But they could do it with 4 if they strategized well. And there's, in my opinion, no animal that strategizes better than wild dogs do when it comes to hunting. Oh, we've got some predator scat that I do not want to drive over. Yeah, but it also makes teamwork, dreamwork, you know, that whole shebang. This is gorgeous. This is gorgeous. So the more dogs there are, the easier it is, and they are very democratic, and they are good sharers. They're always looking for equality. They can make a kill and bring back parts of it to pups at the den. They'll bring back for injured individuals that are part of their pack. Apart from that, in the pecking order and actual feeding, they will let the pups eat first, which is just unbelievable amount of altruism that goes on within the pack. Now they tend to bring down medium-sized prey, not usually after things like buffalo or giraffe, but it doesn't mean that they can't do it. It's just that their strategy of running something down can take quite a while. And it also means that that they need to run for long periods. And they also like to sort of pull the underbelly, the soft skin in the underbelly of an animal. And that means... Let's go. I thought you were going to drink, guys. That means that they can disembowel an animal pretty quickly. And it's probably the quickest, painless death. What do I see? So if they have something like a buffalo that they want to do that to, that hide is difficult to do that. Okay, guys, where have you gone? Lovely, lovely doggies. They can be gone in absolutely no time, and because they're on the road, it's very difficult to rush after them because you don't want to give them the impression that you're chasing them. They've turned somewhere. Okay, just gonna look for tracks quick. Okay, they didn't come past you. Well, that was a wonderfully unexpected surprise, and I hope that I'll be able to find them again, but they seem to have moved north, and I'm going to keep on looking. But when I do that, I'll send you back over to Nikki and those lions that I hijacked you guys from.
So this male lion picked up his head a little bit earlier, and then he rolled around onto his side. So now we're just hoping it is cooling down. Early on, there was a herd of wildebeest that was moving behind us, and he stared at them for quite a bit, and then he lay down again. Now, his brother is not too far away. He's just laying behind him off to the right. So we'll just give it a bit of time still and see if there's any interesting thing that might happen with him. You can just hear how peaceful it is at the moment. You can hear some of the birds calling. Riley, you're asking a good question. Which one of these two would be the alpha male within the pride? So both of them rule the pride. So both of them will also share mating rights. Now, like, it's interesting because some of the rangers have mentioned that this one that you see with the dark mane, like, the chances are that he could possibly, when he's with this pride, show more dominance. But then the one with the blonder mane, with another pride, that breakaway pride, which is more on our western side, they often see him as the more dominant. So, like, for both of them, they are the dominant males together as brothers, and they do share mating rights. Often with a coalition, you'll find that either the one is slightly bigger than the other, but these two are probably more or less the same size, as well as being aggressive as well. So they can definitely stand if they, when it comes to mating rights. Like, of course, it depends on who's going to be more dominant that particular day, but sometimes it could happen that both of them could mate with the same female. See how he's just curled himself into a little ball there. But how beautiful is that light on his mane? Like, you can see there's a little splash of white on his whiskers, and then behind his ear that little streak of black, and then of course that blonde that then fades into a bit of black. but very, very relaxed as we speak. So while we're having a look to see what these lions are going to do, let's head across to James with the approaching elephant.
Here we've got an elephant bull. I was rather hoping he'd come and say hello to us nicely, but I think he's just going to walk past. No? Come and say hi. Hello, big fella.
I'm checking north from the jungle.
Look at the drongo following him. There's also a starling on the road next to him. Now, those wild dogs could pop out somewhere around here at any stage. So we're kind of in the right place to help Trish if they do pop out. Gosh, it's wonderful having so many elephants around. It's just such a privilege. I'd say he was about 25 odd. So he hasn't got quite the confidence of a big 35-year-old musk bull, but at the same time, he doesn't really have the same curiosity of a, say, 18 or 20-year-old. So he's just kind of walking on by. Hannah, bulls and cows, ewes and rams are just English conventions, so they're not biological conventions. And so the fact that an elephant bull is called a bull and a female a cow, and the same for a whale, and in fact the same for a crocodile, is just an English convention. It's just how we talk. So there's no kind of rhyme or reason to it other than English convention. Gabriella, they go off on their own because that's just how they want to live. I think it's probably got something to do with the fact that they feel a sense of competition from each other. They don't really want to live with each other all the time. Sometimes they do. And often you'll find a bull close to a herd, but not necessarily in it. And so, yeah, they do live solitary lives the older they get. And sometimes they just like to be on their own. I'm not entirely sure why that should necessarily be the case. But I suspect it'll have something to do with the similarities, or there will be some similarities between the, I think, more sociable nature perhaps of human females and less sociable nature of human males. It's probably a comparable kind of, brain chemistry, if you like, that gives rise to it in elephants. That's not to say for 1 second that all female humans are social and all male humans are not. Obviously, that isn't the case. The point in that discussion being that the hormones that make that elephant function the way they do are very similar to the ones that make us function the way we do. And there he has disappeared. We might try and follow him. We'll see if we can. just turn around here. I don't know where Trish's wild dogs are. Unfortunately, they seem to have absconded. There's a hyena, though, going back to the den. Let's leave that elephant and go back to the den with this meese, especially as the meese, there it is, could easily be going off to perhaps either the den or the sound of dogs hunting. The smell of a recently eviscerated Impala. So we just checked the den, there was nothing there. And now this hyena is going back towards the den. A misi, by the way, is the Shangan word for a hyena. I think it's such a lovely word. Misi. Very similar to the Zulu word for it, which is, of course, impisi. And indeed the Swahili word for it, which is, David? Fisi. I think the hyena's probably still on this road, heading towards the den. Hello, stuck in bed. Stuck in bed, an elephant has to drink once a day. Sometimes, if it's really hot, they'll try and drink twice a day. If they're really pushed in the desert, they can go 5 days without water. But normally 3 days is a kind of limit. But they will try and drink every day if they can. Right, we've got the hyena just ahead. Don't see any dogs, so I think the hyena's just going back to the den for the sake of the den as opposed to the dogs. Yeah, Trishala would really have struggled to carry on following those dogs through this block. It's nigh on impossible. Unless they just happen to run through some kind of really open area. Let's go back to Nicky and his lions. We'll wait and see what's happening here at the den.
I can see, like, if we can just move to the one on the right there, Marcel. I thought I saw that one's head picking up. Oh, just dropped there again early on. These two brothers are very relaxed, and it does look like the bellies are quite full, so they might have had a good meal either in the last day or two. What's so interesting about a male lion's life is often when they get kicked out when they're young, they venture off for quite a bit and they become very nomadic. So all they try and do is they scavenge from any predator, like sometimes from wild dogs, from leopard, from cheetah, until they get to around about 5.5, maybe even 6 years old. And that's when they become very, very dominant, and they'll start moving into territories and then start taking on some of the other males in that area. Now, based on the knowledge and experience from what I've heard from some of the rangers, is that in this area there only used to be one dominant male lion, and that male was getting to quite the end of his life, and then when these two moved in, it just started pushing him out, and eventually they took over this area. So it'd be interesting to see how long they would be able to reign here. Judging by their age, we estimate they're around about 8 years, so probably reign for the next 2, maybe possibly 3 years if they're lucky. But they do have quite a strong bond, and it's very unlikely to find them by themselves. They tend to try and stick together as long as they possibly can. Purple Lemon, you're asking a very good question. Why would the lion be seen as the king of the jungle? So you can, oh, look at him rolling around. Just look at the size of those paws. Yes, he looks so comfortable. He almost looks like he's giving himself a hug. So I would say the main reason why they consider the king of the jungle is just because for these male lions, there's no, like, they don't fear anything. The only other danger to them could possibly be two other male lions, or maybe more than two male lions. But other than that, they have nothing to worry about, nothing to fear. And I think that's probably why they call them the king of the jungle.
But let's face it, it's actually an elephant.
Yeah, as Marcella said, like, if we had to be completely honest, we'd probably think a big elephant bull. Toby, age 10 in the UK, you asked a very good question. How far north would you be able to find lions? Oof. Yeah, like, you possibly could get them all the way, but I know you're probably just above Central, East Africa, and then more to West Africa, but not a lot of them are found up north, let's say towards Egypt and that. I think it's more, they used to reign across the whole of Africa, but I think their range has really gone down. And you know what I'm going to do is, I'll definitely try and see if I can figure out exactly how far is the north, like the furthest lion population up north. I mean, if any of our viewers are currently viewing in and have a roundabout idea, which country would you say, or the distribution, which is the most northern part of a lion's distribution, I'd love to hear. I mean, I have seen some maps of their distribution, but it's really hard to pinpoint on exactly where would be the furthest northern population of these particular animals. So we're still going to stick some time with this lions, see what they might be up to. But for now, let's head across to James with Ribbon at the Hyena Den.
So we've got Ribbon here. It wasn't a young hyena. I don't know why I thought it was a young hyena coming in here. It was Ribbon. I guess I thought she was a young hyena coming in because I'm very poor at recognizing them. But there it is. So she came in, stuck her head down the hole, started calling, and then stuck her backside in, and hopefully the little ones will come out. Of course, we've said that 7 billion times, and we've had 3 out of 7 billion views of the babies. Ribbon, you're going to have to bring them out eventually. They have to play. They have to be out of the den. They have to get strong. Their neurosystems need to develop properly. They can only do that through playing. They need to habituate to human beings. Come on. She just disagrees with me. I love coming here at the end of the day. I think it's just a lovely way to close off a day in the wilderness. Spending time with this beautiful hyena. Yes, I did say beautiful hyena, that is correct. Lots of lovely bird song. always very calming to sit here, although I must tell you, it is starting to get a little niffy around here. It doesn't quite smell of the beautiful dry grass and soil that it used to. It now smells a little bit like a hyena has been living here. Let's go back to Trishala and find out what's happened to her hounds.
My hounds went away. We tried looking for them. We still have... So they were heading actually into that block where James is right now, where the hyena den is. And we also had another vehicle out that was having a look for them. But given the speed that they were running at, I think that going to quarantine is not a bad idea, especially since it's a time when they'd be hunting, and we know we've seen them on quarantine so much, and we know that they enjoy hunting out there. So let's go and have a look at one of their favorite spots. So if this is one of your favorite things to watch, we hope that you'll continue to watch with us and that you may support us. We do have a support page which should be coming up on your screen right about now. So my magic touch, did you see that? Hope it did. Hope you did. Hope it worked. Anyway, if you'd like to and if you can support us, please do, because it's wonderful to watch. It's wonderful to be able to do this for you all, to be able to bring a live safari to you and to show you the animals and educate, most importantly. And though it's free to watch, it's definitely not free to produce. So please do follow the link and keep us going so we can see more wild dogs in action, right? I had a wild dog kill not too long ago, and the speed at which it is done is unbelievable, and within 2 minutes the animal is done for. By the time that I had gotten to, I could hear, you can't even hear the squealing of the animal, because like I said to you before, they grab the animal and then they disembowel very quickly, so the animal almost doesn't even have an opportunity to squeal. But what you do hear are the wild dogs going as they do. And by the time I heard that and a slight commotion in the grass to getting to the spot, which was all of 30 meters away, maybe 50 meters away, there was hardly anything left of that big Impala. So let's hope we can get to quarantine and that they'll be around. But also, even though their meal is very quick, their actual hunting strategy takes a long time. And that's because they run circles, again and again and again. And then eventually they do get their prey, in fact, 80% of the time. Alright, James is still with a ribbon. Let's go to him and hope that those cubs come out.
No cubs just yet, everybody. At the moment, in fact, a fairly poor performance from Rabone so far. I feel she could be making more of an effort for us. Yep, just got savaged by a moth. Amy, the chances of the dogs attacking this den are very small. They could pitch up here. She would have a go at them. If she felt in danger, she'd run away. And the cubs would just disappear inside and the dogs wouldn't be able to get at them, I don't think. There'd definitely be a confrontation if they came past here, though. I'm just not sure why they would. I haven't seen Ribbon this inert for some time. Normally there's the odd head flick backwards. Not tonight. Nothing. Right, that's probably going to be it from us. We'll wait here till the end of the show, but we don't have any action here. Well, Nicky certainly does with his lions.
So we're so badly hoping that these lions would get up. They are just so comfortable as we speak. And as you can see, that like nothing is chasing them. Nothing is rushing them at all. And they might even, like knowing from their behavior, they might even lay down for another 2 hours, 3 hours before they get up and start moving again. But I do think that they are going to move quite a bit in this evening. They haven't moved too far from where they were seen this morning. And often male lions like this can travel up to 10 kilometers a night. I know with these two, they'll probably end up traveling something close to 10. But it would be interesting to know if they have finished their patrolling and maybe they're going to meet up with the rest of the pride, or maybe after the bit of rain we had and all their centers washed down, are they now going to restart to mark their whole territory before they eventually come back here. There are some wildebeest now currently moving behind us, and the wind is blowing from the wildebeest towards them. So let's see, even though these lions are sleeping, if he would... Oh, look at that. Look at how comfortable he is. He's actually just pulling his paws back in. Yeah. Right, we're going to go to infrared in 1, 2, 3. There we go. Varna, aged 4 in the UK, you're asking a really good question. Why would the lions be so tight? So I'm just quickly putting my spotlight on. I'm trying to put a red filter so that the light is not too harsh on the lion. I'll quickly shine it on him. Here we go. So you're asking a really good question. Why would lions be so tired? Now for them, they've probably moved the whole evening. So they would have moved for quite a few hours and they would have traveled quite a fair distance. But the other thing is why I think they might also be tired is for them, remember, they don't need to be anywhere pretty soon. So for them, they will conserve as much energy as they possibly can before they have to start a move. Because remember, the more you move, the more energy you burn. And with them, if they only eat every third, fourth day, like whenever they don't have to move, they'll just lay down and conserve as much of their energy as they possibly can. The herd of wildebeest is not too far away from here, but you can see they haven't smelt anything yet. A little yawn and a nice stretch. Looks like his eyes might be open, but it could only be open for a little while before he shuts it again. Oh, there we go. Closed it again. So I think this is probably him for at least another half an hour, maybe 45 minutes before he starts getting up. But I think from here on, we'll just take the spotlight off of him for now. But he'll probably, like him and his brother, will probably start heading off in this direction during the evening. Maybe go see if they can join up with the rest of the pride. But for now, they're not going to be heading anywhere pretty soon. So I just want to say to everyone, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you for our morning safari.